For some reason, the topic of which Star Wars movie has the best LEGO sets is something that just never really gets discussed within the community, I feel like. I mean, obviously you have your original trilogy diehards and then your prequel diehards, but nobody really talks about which individual Star Wars movie actually has the best sets. So in this video, I'm going to do my best and attempt to rank every Star Wars movie strictly off of their LEGO sets. And in case you need to hear this again, I said strictly off their LEGO sets. I'm not ranking every Star Wars movie. If you want to know my two favorite movies, Rogue One and Revenge of the Sith are tied for my number one, with Return of the Jedi being in a close second. So again, I'm not ranking the Star Wars movies, I'm ranking them just off of their LEGO sets. And let me tell you, this is one of the hardest lists I have ever attempted to make, so if you disagree, just voice your opinion in the comments, say what you want. Anyways, I'm not doing the Clone Wars movie, so we have 11 movies to get through, and starting off, the Star Wars movie that I think has the worst LEGO sets is The Last Jedi. There were only 18 sets released based off this movie, and most of them are just filler sets. Really, the only real highlights to me at least were just 4 sets, that being Kylo Ren's TIE Fighter, the ATM-6, the First Order Star Destroyer, and the Resistance Bomber. The rest of the sets were just little forgettable battle packs, or random niche sets like the First Order Heavy Scout Walker, or sets we don't care about like the Resistance Transport Pod. So again, there were some highlights being those 4 sets I mentioned, but the rest of it was just fluff. Oh, and also not to mention, literally the worst LEGO Star Wars set of all time is based off this movie. Anyways though, now making our way into the top 10, at the number 10 spot, I have probably the most underrated Star Wars movie, being Solo. And yeah, I know it's kind of ironic that I said it's underrated, but then put it at the back of the list, and that's just because its lineup of sets is pretty weak. Don't get me wrong, the highs are high, especially the Imperial TIE Fighter. That's without a doubt the best TIE Fighter LEGO has ever made, and then the Kessel Run Millennium Falcon, awesome color scheme, really unique set. But then you have sets that people either forgot about or just never really cared about, like Moloch Speeder or the Imperial AT Hauler, and then you have the overpriced Imperial Conveyance Transport, which nobody has ever liked. So again, the highs are high with the TIE Fighter and Millennium Falcon, but overall the lineup is just pretty inconsistent, and we also just didn't really get many sets from this movie in general. Up next at the number 9 spot, I have the one sequel movie that I actually like, that being The Force Awakens. There's a total of 26 sets from this movie, and don't get me wrong, there is some fluff in there and sets that nobody really cares about, but at the same time, there's also some sets that I think are really good. For instance, the Resistance X-Wing and Poe's X-Wings. I think they look super unique. I love the color schemes on them. Same goes for the First Order TIE Fighter. I think that's the second best TIE Fighter LEGO has ever made. And then you had the fan favorite at the time of its release, the First Order Transporter with Captain Phasma. But again, like I said, there is some fluffs, that's why I kept it towards the back of the list. And then you also have Kylo Ren's Command Shuttle, the first one, which is not a good set. And then some other lowlights like the Dual Starkiller base from 2019. But overall, the highlights from this movie are high. Despite a lot of people not really liking the movie itself, these sets are good. And also, I'll admit, I just have some nostalgia for this movie and the first wave of sets from this movie, because at the time, it was the first Star Wars movie in 10 years, so there was so much hype around the movie and so much hype around this initial wave of sets that it was just a really fun time. Anyways though, now making our way to the number 8 spot, I actually have The Rise of Skywalker. Now hear me out, I know this movie is not good at all. Honestly, in my head, it's just as bad as The Last Jedi, but the few LEGO sets we do have from this movie are surprisingly top tier. Really, the only lowlights are the Pisana speeder chase and the Knights of Ren transport ship. The rest of the sets are great, 2 of them being actually some of the most popular sets LEGO has ever made, that being 75256 Kylo Ren's shuttle, which I'm pretty sure most of us consider to be a great set, as well as 75257 Millennium Falcon. And these 2 sets were and still are insanely popular, especially the Millennium Falcon. Its shelf life was 5 years and 2 months. It was selling so well that LEGO just did not stop extending its shelf life, and Kylo Ren's shuttle had a longer than usual shelf life as well, just because it was so popular. But it wasn't just those sets, we had the Resistance Y-Wing and the Resistance A-Wing, and then the second Poe Dameron's X-Wing fighter. So again, this movie is not good, but the sets that we got from it are surprisingly consistent, and most of them are top tier. Up next at the number 7 spot, I have one of my 2 favorite Star Wars movies, and also a movie that I think desperately needs more sets, that being Rogue One. And I'm gonna go so far to say that there's literally not a bad set from this movie. Every single one of them is good. Really, the only debatably mid set is 75171 Battle on Scarif, but there's still so many people that love that set. So really, there's not a bad set from this movie. Every single one of them is top tier. I mean, the initial wave in 2016 literally went 5 for 5. The Imperial Hover Tank, the AT-ST, the TIE Striker, the U-Wing, and Krennic's Imperial Shuttle. And again, I love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, even outside of the Star Wars franchise, and I really want to put this higher on the list, but I can't, simply because we just haven't gotten enough sets from it. Excluding polybags and the buildable characters, we've only gotten 9 sets from this movie, but LEGO has pretty much gone 9 for 9 with all of them. Again, the only debatably bad one being the battle on Scarif. And if LEGO would have continued to consistently make sets this good from Rogue One throughout the late 2010s, from like 2017 to 2020, which they should have done, I would have put this in the top 3 in a heartbeat. Even if we just got a few more sets, like 15 to 20 total, I still would have put it in the top 3 if they were consistently this good. But no, LEGO has just moved on. I don't know why, but they just don't make sets from Rogue One anymore. And it's really sad because this is a beloved movie in the Star Wars fan base, and all of these sets are beloved in the LEGO community. Anyways though, up next at the number 6 spot, I have the first prequel movie on this list, that being The Phantom Menace. And I'm pretty sure it's safe to say we can all agree that there's definitely been some fan favorites from this movie, like heavy hitters. The most obvious one is of course 7662 Trade Federation MTT from 2007, but there's others like the Republic Cruiser, the 2015 Naboo Starfighter, Anakin Skywalker and Cibolas Pod Racers, the Mos Espa Pod Race from 1999, the 2000 Trade Federation AAT, the Gungan Sub, the newest Trade Federation troop carrier. The list just goes on and on and on. Now, one thing I do have to say is that the sets from this movie are pretty limited, if that makes sense. There's not much variety. They're either all based off of Naboo or all based off of Tatooine with multiple remakes, and since LEGO has been making sets from this movie for so long, there's obviously going to be a few duds here and there, but still there are some very, very high highlights, and we have gotten lots and lots of fan favorite sets from this movie over the years. And now making our way into the top 5, at the number 5 spot, I have the most neglected prequel movie from LEGO, that being Attack of the Clones. And the reason I say it's neglected is because we've gotten 45 sets from The Phantom Menace, 52 sets from Revenge of the Sith, and only 21 sets from Attack of the Clones. And like The Phantom Menace, the sets from this movie don't have much variety because they're all based off of Geonosis, which definitely is a bit hypocritical because with The Phantom Menace, I said the sets are based off of Naboo and Tatooine, but with this one, it's just Geonosis. And I'm gonna be honest, the episode 2 sets are just cooler. We like clone troopers more than battle droids, and also they're surprisingly consistent. There's not very many bad episode 2 sets. The only debatable lowlights in my opinion are the Jedi and Clone Troopers battle pack for 2018, and like maybe Duel on Geonosis from 2013, but at the same time, a lot of people love that set because of Poggle. So basically what I'm getting at is the sets from this movie are consistent, and they're really cool because they're all mainly just Battle of Geonosis sets with clone troopers and battle droids, except like I mentioned earlier, this is the prequel movie with the least amount of sets. LEGO just neglects it for some reason, so that's why I'm not putting it any higher. Anyways though, now making our way to the number 4 spot, this might come as a surprise to some of you guys, but I actually have Revenge of the Sith. And honestly, at one point, I considered putting this at number 1, but there was one thing that made me change my mind on that, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But what I want to say right now is that when it comes to strictly just play sets, Revenge of the Sith is number 1. LEGO has made over 50 sets from this movie, and I kid you not, almost every single one of them is a hit. There's a few duds here and there, like the original 2005 Ultimate Lightsaber Duel, as well as the 2020 Ultimate Lightsaber Duel remake, and then maybe the 2020 General Grievous Starfighter just because it was overpriced, except if you take the price away, the set itself is actually pretty much perfect. And not to mention, on top of that, the variety of sets from this movie is absolutely ridiculous, mainly just because there's so much going on in the movie itself, and LEGO has done a really good job at making sets based off of almost every scene. You have the Jedi Interceptors and the Ultimate Space Battle, you have the Utapau sets like the 2022 ATTE, as well as the Utapau Troopers Battle Pack from 2014, you have the Order 66 sets like Palpatine's Arrest, and then the Imperial sets like the Imperial V-Wing, as well as Emperor Palpatine's Shuttle, and then not to mention the Kashyyyk sets, which are always fan favorites. So again, when it comes to just play sets, this movie is number 1 without a doubt. The consistency is insane, and almost every set that has come from this movie has been very high quality and a fan favorite. However, I'm not putting it higher than the number 4 spot for the sole reason that the original trilogy movies are carried by UCS sets. And honestly, it was pretty hard for me to decide if I wanted to even factor in UCS sets into this video, because as you guys know, for list videos like this, I typically just straight up exclude UCS sets because they're unfair. But for a video like this, which is literally ranking every Star Wars set based off of the movies, I feel like I just had to include them because they're such big staples of the Star Wars LEGO theme, and they're staples of specifically original trilogy sets. So with that being said, now making our way into the top 3, at the number 3 spot, I have A New Hope. Over the past 25 years, we have gotten countless different sets from this movie, and the variety is honestly pretty impressive, from the Playscale Star Destroyers, the most notable one being the newest one from this year 2024, to all of the various different starfighters like the X-Wings and the TIE Fighters and the Y-Wings, and then of course the Tatooine sets like the Sandcrawlers and the various different Mos Eisley Cantinas, and then of course you have the UCS sets like I was just talking about, with the most notable one in my opinion being the UCS Star Destroyer from 2019, but then of course you have the UCS versions of pretty much every starfighter that's appeared in this movie. When it comes to variety, this movie really does have it all in terms of its LEGO set lineup, although I do feel like we're at a point in the list where it's kind of just more subjective, and it really does just come down to what type of original trilogy trilogy sets you like, but for myself, I'm putting episode 4 at the number 3 spot. Anyways though, not making our way to the number 2 spot, I have The Empire Strikes Back. And I mean, what is there not to love about the sets from this movie? Specifically the Hoth sets. I mean, they've been fan favorites in the LEGO community for literally years and years on end, from all the Playscale AT-ATs and the UCS AT-AT to the various different snowspeeders and the various different Battle of Hoth sets and Hoth Echo bases to even the battle packs like the 2022 Snowtrooper battle pack. I think that's one of the best battle packs ever made. And then aside from Hoth, you have all of the Cloud City sets like the different Slave 1s, the UCS Slave 1, which a lot of people consider to be a top 3 UCS set of all time. LEGO has consistently made good fan favorite sets from this movie for years, and I think it more than deserves the number 2 spot, and a lot of you guys would actually probably put it at the number 1 spot when it comes to just the original trilogy, but like I said, this part of the list is more or less subjective, so I'm putting Return of the Jedi at number 1. And to me at least, the sets from this movie just hit home more. For some reason, the Endor sets have always been very nostalgic to me, like the Battle of Endor and the Ewok Village, and even the original speeder bike set from 1999. Just something about the Endor sets have always stuck out to me, and they've always been some of my favorites. But then on top of that, you have the Tatooine sets like Jabba's Palace and the sail barges, and then all of the various different awesome starfighters we have from this movie, like the A-Wings, the B-Wings, the TIE Interceptors, and then it gets even better with the UCS sets. We have the UCS Imperial Shuttle, which a lot of people consider to be the best UCS set LEGO's ever made, along with the UCS versions of the starfighters that I just mentioned, and then of course the UCS Death Star 2. There's just been so many great and nostalgic sets from this movie over the past 25 years, and in my opinion, factoring in UCS sets, it is the Star Wars movie with the best LEGO set lineup. But again, like I said earlier, if we're not factoring in UCS sets, episode 3 takes it by a long shot. Anyways guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Like I said, this is one of the hardest lists I have ever tried to make, and I know a lot of you guys are probably gonna disagree with it, so just voice your opinion in the comments, say whatever you want, and if you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see it on the screen right now.